hop uncensored, viral breaking news. Oh God and Sammy, two stand-up dudes, raw and uncut interviews. Feed the culture in the world, ever changing. The brothers bringing you closer. Mikey tapped in, hottest unbiased content. Like, share, subscribe, leave your thoughts in the comments. Screaming the truth louder than they scream the lies. Unplugged from the matrix, support my God. Podcast that bypass the test of time. Hip hop uncensored, here to open your mind. Bringing you the latest from the world of entertainment. It's time to get into it. Y'all ready? Let's do it.
Welcome to another episode of the Hip Hop Uncensored podcast. I'm your brother, God from Hip Hop News Uncensored, and sitting across from me is my co-host.
What up, y'all? It's your man Sam, and CEO of Viral Hip Hop News. You're in the building for a very special edition of the Hip Hop Uncensored podcast. We got a special guest in the building. Yes. Andrè Taylor's on the podcast. What's good with you, family? How you doing?
I'm doing well. How you guys doing, man?
Good. Appreciate you coming on, man. Thank you for chilling with us this afternoon. How you feeling, man? How's everything going in your world, man? You got the Andrè Taylor YouTube platform doing this thing, man. You got the website booming out here, really making a name for yourself as a legendary Andrè Taylor. So how's you feeling, man? How's life where you at?
I'm good, man. You know, just like my uncle would say, chop wood, drink water, you know. Keep it consistent. Chop wood, drink water.
So yeah, take us back, man. We always like to go back for our listeners and kind of just get a full scope of who we're interviewing or talking to that day. Take us back to your childhood, man. Let us know a little bit, briefly how you grew up and where you grew up at.
Born in Seattle, raised in LA. You know, people know me from the movie American Pimp as Gorgeous Dre. Mother was in the game, father was in the game. Transitioned into the game myself at 23. Long story short, a lot of people know about my story, but long story short, did Fed time, caught a Fed case while we were filming American Pimp. Got out the Feds. 6 months after I got out the Feds, I started lecturing at universities. After that, a few years later, my brother got killed, Seattle, Washington, by Seattle Police Department. I moved to Seattle. Started an organization called Not This Time. Within 3 years, we was able to create history in this country by changing state law. Washington, Seattle area had the worst law in the nation because in Seattle, in order for us to hold a police officer accountable, we had to prove that he had malice. Malice means you had to prove what was in the officer's mind at the time of the shooting, which we know was impossible. So for over 30 years, not one officer was convicted of any unjustified shooting. So we changed the law, created history. Today, Washington State is the only state with a police accountability law, with the initiative called 940 that started with my little organization, Not This Time, which included 21 different organizations from all communities that came together up underneath my leadership. After that, I started doing my music again, did some things on what is it called? Fox News, was on the Hannity show a few times. The President Trump called me, because I brought one of my clients on the Hannity show, and he called me to offer my client his condolences. So we chopped it up. We kind of appreciated that because we know people say he don't care about nothing, but the fact that he called and offered his condolences to my client who had lost his special needs son in an area out here that was popular a couple of years ago called the Chop area in Seattle. So a lot has happened, man. And up to date, I'm still pushing out the information on manhood, which I talked about in American Pimp. I have my YouTube daily fires that I used to do a couple of years ago. I got about a year's worth of free information. I now do them on my Instagram subscriber channel and my OnlyFans page, where I'm talking and giving information about some of the things that I was able to use to conquer the system, and to this date, my recent video was about Kanye West, in which I felt that our community need to have some clarity on. So I'm continuing to do what I do, not to make a name for myself. I've been had a name for myself. I'm really beyond that. But just really because I love my people, I'm in love with my people, and I understand some of our plight. And I just want to lend my voice out there to try to give clarity, because we, have been so used by so many different races of people. You know what I'm saying? And I thought that this situation with Kanye was a real distracting one, and I wanted to put out a clear message about what this is about and how we should conduct ourselves as Black people. So that's just a long story short, compressed in a few minutes.
No, definitely appreciate that. And there's some questions definitely want to ask about Seattle and how it is racially out there. But you brought up Kanye, so let's kind of pivot and go there, because we see what he's going through. It's clear what he's going through. They making it clear to us every day with what they're, you know what I mean, the point they're trying to make. So what's your overall thought on there? I was listening to a lot of what you said on your YouTube platform a little earlier. I thought it was powerful, and you expressed a lot of the same sentiments that we express here, but you expounded in only a way you can. So mind sharing that for the people?
Yeah, man. You know, it's really psychological warfare that's been going on with our people since we've been in this place here. You know, the beginning of that. Let me just say it like this. You know, when the first 1619, when the first enslaved people, when they enslaved us, came here in in Jamestown. I think they said maybe under 50 enslaved people were here. I can imagine for that first 5 to 10 years, and I'm going somewhere with this, I want you to follow me. I can imagine in that first 5 to 10 years that our people resisted the idea of being enslaved. I can believe that there was a lot of us that died, a lot of us that was fighting, you know. But then over the next maybe 50 years, when there were children born into that condition, the idea of pushing back elude a lot of our people just because of the conditioning. There was an idea back then, a law, that if you ran away from slavery, you were a criminal. And I believe that after conditioning over 50 years or so, that people that were born in that condition really felt that way about themselves, that, hey, if we run away from this condition that we're in, we're criminals. And so that's some of the psychological warfare that goes on to this day. I have a friend that got out of prison, and I remember one day having a conversation with him. His name is Johnny. He said, man, I'm just an old convict. And I rehearsed to him the things that I'm saying to you. I'm like, you got to be careful with that. As a matter of fact, man, don't ever say that in front of me again. He was like, man, you tripping, Dre. So I explained to him the situation of the conditioning, right? So the dominant power, the dominant authorities have the right to make the laws, even if they're corrupt. We know a lot of laws were corrupt, right? And what they try to do and what they have been successful at doing is making us believe that everything that they've created or made is righteous and just, right? So my job, coming from the background that I came from, you know, affords me a little bit more liberty to speak about certain things, because as far as these people are concerned, me coming from a pimp and a prostitute, I shouldn't have been able to be nothing, right? So if I would have took on that idea, that socialization, that indoctrination, then I would have never become who I am today. But I had to go outside of what that indoctrination was teaching me to find out some new information. Hence, when I found that new information about myself, I became empowered, right? So right now with the Kanye situation, they're playing on that indoctrination. Anybody that speaks against what's been going on, we know since maybe the 40s and 30s, that Jewish people just happen to be Jewish people, right? That have controlled the music industry and have taken advantage of a lot of artists way back then that they've complained about, right? That's still going on to this day. So now to point out an error, to point out something that is unjust, right? Because they're dominant right now, because they have the influence and they have the power. Whenever you speak against something that you feel is unjust against you or your people, they gonna tag you with the anti-Semitic title, right? To deflect from what the real issue is. So my job, I feel, was to give us some clarity, because we have this within ourselves, and I believe that's because of the conditioning over the many years that we don't forgive each other very easily. We willing to forgive white folks that have done all they've done to our people over a historic 400 years before we believe somebody that we forgive and give some grace and mercy to somebody Black, right? And that's a character flaw within our people. So I was just simply saying, the brothers out there experiencing things in levels that a lot of us have not experienced. He's seeing things that are overwhelming him. And those things that are overwhelming him, he's just trying to get out of him. He's trying to convey them things. His father told him, listen, you might not say the things properly, right? but he's trying to get all that shit out of him that he's seeing through his experiences, and it's wearing him out. It's not about himself, because he wouldn't have put himself in the condition, you know, to have all this shit taken from him. It's for us, right? So I can relate to that, because when I was fighting police accountability, it was black people that rose up against me, because we have been, you know, victimized, but we have this victim's mentality. I don't have a victim's mentality. I have a conqueror's mentality. All of our people should have a conqueror's mentality, being that we have come through the worst atrocities in the world given to mankind. So I've taken that, and I've taken those things, and I look at us and say, man, we're conquerors. So I have the conqueror's perspective, right? So as a conqueror, me over here fighting police accountability, Kanye over there trying to fight what he can fight in the music industry, we're maneuvering a different way that our people who act like victims can't relate to, right? So because I didn't act like a victim, the people in this area pushed back against me until they saw what I was doing working. I just wanted to make sure that we wouldn't get on the bandwagon. Well, let me just say it like this. I can break it down where it's really simplified. Mm-hmm. You know, I have some brothers and sisters, and if they get in a situation with somebody, I don't allow nobody to talk about my brothers and sisters. I can talk about them. Our family can talk about them.
Right.
But you ain't gonna talk about them. Mm-hmm. You know that idea? You know, you can't talk about them, but I can. So that's how I kind of feel with Kanye. We'll deal with him.
Yes,
right?
Sir.
But I'm not about to go along with you.
Yes,
like,
sir.
And smile and with you. Like, it's cool for you to be doing what you're doing. It's not cool for you to be doing what you're doing, because there's a history in this country. And don't forget that there's a history in this country. So I don't think that we should be hoo-hooing and laughing with white folks, Jews, or whoever, you know what I'm saying, that's trying to orchestrate the demise of a black man or a black woman. I'm not with that shit. And so I'm really upset about that. So I just feel like I take my belt off and give our people a spanking about their behavior and about them she-sheeing with all these people that's trying to destroy. So yeah, the man's gonna make some mistakes. I said in my video, this is the first generation of wealth. We are now coming into wealth, right? And we are now experiencing and learning some things. And through that process of learning, we're gonna make a whole bunch of mistakes, right? But we are afforded a million mistakes, because this country don't give us none. No leverage to make mistakes. I've said in my video, they can go over there and a school shooter, Dylan Ross, take him to a Burger King, and you don't see no school shooter ever being harmed, but a black man bet not jaywalk. You know what I'm saying? So just trying to bring some clarity to us, man, and extend what we got greater than anybody is that love. We got so much great love that we love all these oppressors that have done, and the colonizers that have done everything they've done to us, and we still got love. So why not extend that love to our own people? So that's where I'm at right now with it, fam.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, that's powerful, man. I made a video early, and I was made those same sentiments. Like, me and my brother, you know what I mean? We at war together. We might have an issue, but when we at war, I'm not gonna stop to fight my brother while we at war with somebody else. Hit that on the head perfectly. I want to go back a little bit though. You know, when you say you pretty much grew up in the pimping, the lifestyle. At what age, if you can, if you want to talk about it?
There was no age. I was born into it. My mom was a hoe. My dad was a pimp. I was born into it. So with no age, you know, I came.
Well, I mean, like what? I mean, you was born into it, but like, when did you start like actually being active, like in it?
Okay, but let me give you some background, because what we might call a square is somebody that is not informed about the lifestyle. It's not it's not supposed to be used as a derogatory term. So when I say somebody that's square, they're just not informed. So, and before I get to the explanation, let me explain to you that there are some people that have some of the information, but being able to articulate that information, a lot of people don't have, which is why I lecture at universities, right? So let me explain to you about the game, right? The pimp game. The pimp game is a subculture. The black community is a subculture. The pimp game, the game, is a subculture within that, where there's rules, there's laws, kind of like the mafia, right? There's rules, there's regulations, there's things that you can do, there's things that you can't do, right? So that's how the pimp game is. It is a subculture within a subculture, right? That there are things that people have decided within this subculture that this is what we're going to agree about, and that's amongst us. We're not really concerned about whether other people outside of this subculture understands, like the mafia. They're not concerned whether anybody understands whatever their subculture is, it is their understanding, and this is how they choose to maneuver. So that's how the pimp game is, right? So when I ultimately got into the pimp game, because I had resisted getting into the game for so long, I worked at Neiman Marcus, I worked at Nordstrom's, I worked at sales jobs, and I had resisted. My aunt used to always tell me, what you resist will persist. So it was something that I had resisted because I kind of wanted to go a different way in my lifestyle, in my life. Ultimately, when some struggles start happening, I started going back on what I'm good at. I'm good at communication. You know what I'm saying? I have great communication skills, and I utilized what I had learned from my father in the lifestyle and got into the game around 23 years old, right? So my objective was never, because I wasn't taught that this was a long-lasting thing. I explained to people that the pimp part is a small part of the game. Mm-hmm. I don't pimp. I haven't done that over 20 years. I've been married for 24 years, right? But I still utilize the game to empower me and help me in my life. The pimp part is a small part. A lot of young people and a lot of people that are outside of the game think about the pimping is the game. Some people that are in the game think that pimping is the game. It is not. And all the game is knowledge. That's all the game is. When somebody say, man, he got some game, that means he has some knowledge, right? And knowledge that might not be privy to the dominant society. Well, I've utilized that same knowledge that made me a millionaire in the game. I utilized that same knowledge that allowed me to do what no one else has been able to do, which is change law, defeat law enforcement, and submit Washington State up underneath me from the governor on down, right? But I use the knowledge of the game in order to do that. So just trying to give some clarity, to that.
Yes, sir. I want to go into hip hop, but I want to kind of take it on a different spin. And I want to talk about how we see a lot of these hip hop artists as it pertains to the relationship between themselves and a woman. Let's keep it there. In particular, and we usually don't talk about this kind of stuff on our show, but like a Blueface and the young lady that he deals with, I don't even know her name, but we see how toxic the relationship is, and we see how polarizing that is, and that's going on a lot within hip hop. And then I seen you do a video on how to talk to your woman, how to influence her in the right way, and just game women on another level, on a level that my cousin and I kind of grew up on. The chivalry on another level, keeping the door open for a woman. You know what I mean? Making sure she's safe, making sure she's protected, always being ahead, always being first. You don't see that right now. So speak on that. What do you think about how we see the current relationships as it pertains to men and women in hip hop? And how could we change maybe some of the toxicity that is promoted out here within that?
A lot of that comes from the lack of fathers in the household. I know people, say that often, but I'm going to break it down. Right. Mm-hmm. So because I life coach, I mentor, I do all of that to Black men in particular. Right. Before I explain that, I had a problem. Rest in peace to Kevin Samuels. I had a problem with Kevin Samuels, and I addressed him several times, and all of his fans used to hate that I would do so. But I had to, because I felt that what he was teaching men, teaching our people, was to blame Black women, right? The condition of the Black women. But I teach the empowerment of a man, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go somewhere with this, because this is going to cover what you're asking me.
Yes, sir.
So in American Pimp, I think, which was one of the most influential things I said in that documentary, which was made by the Hughes brothers, who made the Book of Eli with Denzel, From Hell with Johnny Depp, and on and on. I said that before you anything, that you have to be a man, that my father had taught me, before you're a doctor, a lawyer, or a pimp, or anything, that you had to be a man, right? And I also teach that manhood is a position, right? That means what was taken from us, in particularly as a people, was the idea that once you turn 18, you become a man. That's one of the most disastrous things that could have happened to us as a people, for us to believe that. Because historically, before one could become a man, there was something that they had to do. Well, maybe back in the day, they had to go slay the lion. There was something that they had to do, right, to be able to say they hold this position as a man. What has demolished manhood today is that people often feel when they become 18, they automatically become a man. Well, I don't teach that, right? Because manhood is a position. There are certain things that you must have within this position to be able to hold that you are indeed a man. So when we have a culture of our people growing up feeling that they're a man at 18, that there is nothing strenuous or challenging that they have to do or overcome in order to be said man, then here's what you have. You have a bunch of males, not men. You have a bunch of males. And when you have a bunch of males, what you have is them trying to find something outside of themselves to blame. So in many of these relationships in hip hop and just in general, a lot of people, because they have not been in the presence of a man, they have not seen in their life how a man governs. They haven't seen that, right? Let me turn a little bit. I said something on another podcast, and I said, a lot of these youngsters out here, they're not afraid to die. If you step on their shoes, you look at them wrong, you say something, they're willing to kill you and they're willing to die for that. That's never been a problem in our communities. The problem is they're scared to live. The reason why they're scared to live is because there's something that's required upon them that they have no point of reference to be, like manhood. When society says a man governs, he takes care of his children, they've never seen that in their own home. It's like you're talking like a foreign language to them. So when all this pressure is being placed upon them of all the things that this man is supposed to be, but in their own house, they've never even seen it. They've never even witnessed that. Therein lies this fear of manhood. So this is some of the issues what we're having in our community is this fear of being said man, right? So when you see those two, Blueface or whatever the broad is, all this going on, I understand why this is going on because there's no one leading in the relationship, right? There's no one that's saying, I'm going to do such and such, and I'm not doing such and such because of you. I'm doing such and such because I'm a man. I have people that I mentor. They say, man, Drake, man, if my girl would have did this, this, and this, if she just would have did this, this, and this, I would have did such and such. And I say to them, don't ever say no shit like that to me. And they mean, why you tripping, Drake? I said, man, because what you're really saying that in order for you to be a man, you need her to be a woman. Your manhood can't be predicated on what she does or what she doesn't do. Your manhood ain't predicated upon her. You're a man because that's who you are. It ain't got nothing to do with her. See, but ain't nobody taught some of our young people these fundamentals of manhood. So we're all out here lost, right? We're lost. And that's why you see the destructions in relationships, in particularly in our community, because I'm worried about us, right? I can lead all people. I have the information and the knowledge to lead all people, which I did in Washington State. But my focus is our people.
I see one of your videos you have, if you can briefly expound on it, the event that turned, him from a pimp to an activist. Can you kind of put that, summarize that for us?
Well, people have asked me, Dre, why you got out the game? Because you went to federal prison, because you were scared. I said, no, I conquered the game. Remember I said that the pimp game is a small part of the entirety of the game, right? I conquered that. And I'm a firm believer once I conquer something, in order for me to go back to it would make me a coward. So since I conquered that, there was other things out there for me to conquer. So once I fulfilled my assignment, and I feel it was an assignment because there was things that I learned in the game that I was able to apply to what I'm doing in my life now, to what I did in police accountability. So once I transitioned up out of that, right, I was done with that. It just so happened that my little brother was killed, right? And once they killed my little brother, who was like the apple of my eye, almost like my little son, then I was like, okay, well, see, I believe the Most High is leading me in this direction because he knows if they touch my little brother, I'm about to give these people the business. And I don't care what I'm up against because I got the information, and most of all, I got the Most High on my side. That's what made the transition. But before my brother was killed, I was speaking on national platforms. I did the Montel Williams show. I did TBN certain times. I was lecturing at universities. I was doing seminars and treatment centers when brothers and sisters come home from prison, how to get back into community. So I was doing all that already. But when they killed my brother, I believe it was the Most High leading me into a direction to deal with what we haven't been successful at dealing with, why we've had so many defeats with law enforcement and police accountability. So what I did is I said, as I observed why we kept getting defeated, and then I realized what it was. And I said, you know, we are a very emotional people, right? And so when one of ours get killed, there is an immediate reaction, right? We might burn down something, turn cars over, break this, that, and the other. And so the system have mastered our reaction. So I said, I'm not going to react. I don't care what, I will not react. I will respond. So when I came to Seattle, Washington, I had the strategy already planned. So when I met with the chief of police, I told her, her name was Kathleen O'Toole. I said, listen, I know I can't bring my little brother back, but I'm still willing to partner with you so that we can reduce the incidences of violence in our communities. Now, what people did not know is what that did is it made her have to engage me, right? Mm-hmm. It made her have to engage me on my terms, but I elevated the conversation. And when I elevated the conversation, I kept the pressure, the focal point on the police killings. So we didn't lose the narrative, because when we start burning down things and doing all this stuff, we automatically lose the narrative. And the narrative goes to the burning down of things instead of the initial issue of the police shooting. So we lose it. I wasn't going to lose it because I understood what they was doing. I understood how they had been winning. So I kept the narrative, right? And I kept the focus on the issue at hand. And I never reacted. I kept responding over and over and over and over again, to the point that I was able to go to every single community, to the Latino community, to the Asian Pacific Islander community, to the Native community, to all communities up here, and to their leadership, and tell them, listen, we have been fighting individually and been losing. Partner with me, because they can't beat all of us. So what I did, my strategy was, in order to defeat, so that people could know how we defeated law enforcement, how we got the law changed, how we created history in this country. What I did is I took every community that had experienced a police killing, and every community had, white community, and every community that I named, and I put their voices at the forefront. And what that did, brother, is it made every single community feel that they're not fighting for Black people, but they're fighting for themselves, because they realized they were not exempt from this issue that was going on. So I made it bigger than us. I showed people that this is an American problem. Mm-hmm. And by showing them this was an American problem, we connected every community together. And that is called building power. I often have said, as America is an empire. They operate like an empire. So when our people have been trying to fight, we've been fighting as victims. You can't fight an empire as a victim, because they don't respect victims, because they got into the position that they got to doing what they've done to us, right? This is how they got into the position. So when you keep asking, why have you done this to us? They got into the damn position by doing it to us. What do you mean? Right. So what you need to do is start creating power. So because I created that power, I didn't go asking for them nothing. We went demanding, to the point that the governor, the sheriff, the chief of police, senators, everybody in this state had to submit up underneath my leadership. And people can go look at it now, because it's there. All the evidence is there. So that was the first time anything like that happened. And God chose me, who they consider to be an insignificant person born from a pimp and a prostitute. But he did that on purpose, because he knows how to frustrate the top people, so to speak. He knows how to frustrate systems. And he wanted to show this system that as powerful as you think you are, I will take an insignificant person and have him conquer you, because I'm yet the Most High. I'm yet God. And that continues to be my testimony. So when I talk to my people, I'm not talking to be talking, because there's a lot of us out there that got great conversation. But I'm not interested in nobody's conversation. I'm interested in the receipts. So when I talk, I bring in the receipts into the equation, right? There's a lot of us out there talking with philosophies, but I challenge every one of us by saying this: have your philosophy impacted your community, your neighborhood, your city, and your state? Well, if it hasn't, why are you out here trying to sell your philosophy to us? I'm not worried about how beautiful you talk. Bring the receipts of how you've conquered white supremacy, because that's what I'm going to bring. I love my people that much because we've been seduced, we've been lied to, we've been through words, through only words. So I don't just bring our community words, I bring the receipts. I just want to say that.
Powerful. You said, you articulated that you knew the game, you understood the game when you were presenting this and pretending and getting this law passed to bring the people together. And you also articulated how we are an emotional people, how we ride and we thrive off of emotion. And something you said earlier on in the interview that was very telling to me was a lot of the backlash you received in pursuit of passing these laws were from our people.
Mm-hmm.
Throughout the strategy of you passing laws for our people, was it the emotion that got to them and the reasoning why they gave you such backlash? Because maybe they thought at the time they weren't going to you. What was the backlash about from our people?
Backlash is because this is an ex-pimp. He's trying to get attention. You know, who's going to listen to him? You know, who does he think he is? Why don't he line up with the NAACP and all that? And yeah, that was the backlash, because I came here and said, listen, how many people have died before my brother? Right. What have any of these organizations up here done? Okay, well, I'm not about to get behind them, right? I got nothing against you, but if you have not done nothing with all the other people before my brother got killed, if nothing has shifted, if nothing has changed, why the hell you think I'm going to get behind you? No, I'm going to utilize the genius that the Most High has given me. And whether you understand it or not, I'm not concerned about that, because the evidence will speak for itself, right? So that's what that was. Yes, it was our people, because we don't understand system stuff. I've said this before. I said, yes, I passed the law and I've created history in this country, but there was none of our platforms that came to say, man, how did you do it? Or yada, yada. The Breakfast Club didn't come. Whatever our platforms, our black platforms, none of them came to say anything to me. But you know who came? White folks' biggest platforms came. The New Yorker, which is the biggest, greatest magazine in the world, they came to interview me. Fox News say all the time, all these because they understand something that we have not really understood, because we are continually being entertained out of understanding that knowledge is power. Most of us, right? Because they understand that knowledge is power. So when they're looking at me, they're saying, we don't own him. What do I mean by own him? Because they take pride in having all these Ivy League universities, in educating all these people that run the world, right? You went to Cambridge, you went to Oxford, you went to Yale, Columbia, Harvard, you went to all these Ivy League. So they take a certain amount of pride. The system takes this pride in that, yeah, that's our boy. Well, God wasn't going to allow that to happen. God says, I'm going to educate you. I'm going to bring you from what they feel is nothing, and I'm going to give you information that's going to submit theirs. So they're sitting back saying, we don't own him. We don't educate him. How in the hell did he learn to think like this? This was not for them. You know who this was for? This was for us. This was for the littlest, smallest guy in the ghetto to feel, wow, he's just like me or worse. If God could do that for Andrè Taylor, he could surely do that for me. This was for the hope of us, so that we understand the time that we are now in. This is a time for Black people. Right now it is. And right now there are alert signs. I'm one of those ones that's out there crying in the wilderness, rise up and be who you are. And here's the receipts for you to see that the Most High is calling upon us. Yes, we have the conditions of the battles over the many years in our communities. Marriages are broke, no families, single moms, all that is good. I've said this before. There's no human condition created that a spiritual solution cannot fix. So yes, we have a lot of things to contend with. Yes, the rest of the world looks down upon us. They look at our condition. They look at us. They look how we don't stick together, how we killing each other. They look at that and they pity us. Poor little black people. But that is what God, that's what he works up out of. He works up out of those conditions so that when he elevates us, his people, then he gets the credit, and that the rest of the world will fear, because they will say, we knew them people when they were there. We knew their condition. We knew how messed up they were. God surely is real. And that creates fear around the world. And that's what you and us are going to see take place. And it's happening right now.
You speak a lot about, God and faith. You've been through a lot, obviously in your life. Talk about a little bit how that helped you through prison and making a transition, from the underworld to being an activist. How did your faith in God help you through all of that?
So let me say something what you said about the underworld and about, so I think a little differently about it. And the reason why I have to think differently about it, because if it wasn't for Pimping and Hoeing, I wouldn't be here, right? I wouldn't be here. God chose for Andrè Taylor, quote unquote, gorgeous Dre, to be birthed from that womb of that woman. He chose that. He knew what he was going to do in my future, but he chose that, right? He chose the seed to come from my father, who was a pimp, who ultimately wrote one of the greatest novels, got 4 out of 5 stars on the New York Times, called The Myth Man. He chose me to be birthed from that condition. So I don't look at it like the system or white folks or anybody else might want me to look at that like that, because I don't look at any of our people that are in them conditions, because I realize that, listen, being in the state that we are in, there are many vices that we run to try to eat, to try to survive, try to feed our families. If we were in our own nation, we would not need those vices, right? But because we are in a foreign nation, indoctrinated from this nation, there are many, with its unfairness, there are many vices out there that we tend to go after for survival, right? So I just want to put that out there. Scripture says that you can't judge a man if he steals, if he's hungry. Do you understand what I'm saying? So that transition was timing, because I believe the Most High deals with time. Everything is timing. When I came up here to Seattle, I told the people, I couldn't tell them in detail, the spiritual things in detail, because they wouldn't understand. But what I did tell them is that it's time for this to happen, right? I am just riding off of timing. I'm riding off the timing of the Most High. I've said this before. You could have all the most brilliant people in the room, but if it's not time for something to happen, it will not manifest. And then you can have insignificant people, like people think that I am, according to the world. But if the Most High said it is time, then nothing can stop it. So my transition had to do with timing. When the Most High felt like I had gotten whatever information I needed to get, even though it was a vice. Once I've got and received everything I needed to get, he transitioned me into something else. And that's how my life has been, right? Once I have fulfilled whatever I needed to get, because he used his life. He used his life. There's nothing else that he could use. So how is it that I can get my education? Because there were real life situations that I had to utilize information that he had given me through those real life situations, life and death situations, which cemented the information inside me to make me believe it, to make me have the faith that I exhibit to you. It was through life, and it was through serious situations that I had to deal with, utilizing information that cemented that in me. So there was something that was extremely necessary, right? Somebody else, he might use something else. He just happened to use that in my life to develop who I am today.
Powerful. Now, we live in South Jersey. We couldn't be further within the United States from Seattle, Washington. It's completely on the other side of the country in the Pacific Northwest. I'm curious to know what the relationship is like, or let me start by saying, do you guys, are there places out there that are like the inner cities, just like everywhere else? And also, what is the relationship like with police when it pertains to the Black community in Washington? How was it prior to you passing laws, and how is it now?
It was, like I said, over 30 years, not one police officer, not one was ever convicted of shooting anybody out here. Not one. Because there was a de facto immunity. What does that mean, Andre? Well, when they wrote in the law that you had to prove that a officer had malice before, you can bring him up on any charges. Well, that meant that there was a de facto immunity. Before you can get to any investigation, you had to first prove the malice. That's called a de facto immunity, right? So we couldn't get to any investigation because the malice was blocking us from even getting to any investigation to even feel if there was anything wrong. We could never get to that because that de facto immunity was right there. And see, we don't understand how laws are written, but we might see something happen, see a police officer unfilmed shoot somebody and him get off. We don't understand how that happened because we don't understand how the laws are written, right? They didn't understand that in Washington State until we start pushing and educating the people about how this law is written. So that de facto immunity is what kept any investigation from going on. So Seattle was like any other place when it came down to police shooting. After we passed the law, and the law was passed in 2018, today, 4 officers have been brought up on murder charges, charged on murder. 4. That's not going on anywhere in this country because we changed the law. Do you understand? So not only did we change it, it is working. It is being effective. People can look it up. 4 officers have been charged with murder in this state, in this city.
Any plans to expand that to other states?
Listen, there is a lot of other cities and states that have called me. Mm-hmm. But I know the amount of work that it's going to take. I want you to understand that we was able to do that. Once this went to vote, 60% of Washington State voted on it. That's a phenomenal number. Yeah. That's a mandate. 60% of the people in Washington. Now, remember, Washington only has about 3% Black people.
Right. I was going to ask that.
Do you understand that? So we was able to do that with 3% Black people because the way that I operated with bringing all those communities, letting them know you're not exempt from this problem. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. So I would love to, but I know the amount of what it's going to take. And I'm not sure if the powers that be want that. Mm. So in order for us to do that, it's going to take our people. It's going to take our millionaires, our billionaires, our people to understand what happened, to value the knowledge that it took to make that happen, right? Mm-hmm. And to say, Dre, we want to partner with you to go do this in other parts of the country. If we do that, we can make it happen, right? But because they never gave me a chance, so they never prepared for it, right? There was no preparation because they looked at me, what's this guy gonna do, right? But now that they've seen that I was able to pull it off, now they're trying to recalibrate, right? Mm-hmm. They're trying to recalibrate to figure out how to deal with it. So I recalibrate, and I know what it's going to take now. If we had the support of our community, if I had the support of our community, and we had the financial backing, I could take it with the support of our community all over this country, and we can get the job done. But I don't have the support of our people because our people are too busy valuing entertainment above knowledge, valuing entertainment above the work that I was able to achieve. So until they have value, until they understand the value of knowledge and power, and that I am one of theirs, and what I have, I want to give and share, and I'm just not talking. I actually have the receipts. But like I said, none of our platforms ever came to me. But white folks that recognized what it took, they have come. That's where we're at right now. Yeah. Do you understand? That's what our dilemma is.
Appreciate that. Before we get up out of here, man, I want to definitely put it on a lighter note, a little more positive note, even though all of this has been positive and very powerful. And we appreciate the information, as I'm sure our subscribers will as well. Let's talk about some of your music, man. Gorgeous Dre. Maybe you saw it. You had your official video drop a little under 10 days ago. It's doing well on YouTube, man. Talk about the layout. Talk about the music.
Well, I dropped my first video last year. My album is called Many Shades of Dre. And people ask me because people were tripping out, especially in this area, once I shifted from police accountability to music. Because remember, I'm a very strategic mind, right? So why did I do that? Why did I start doing music, talking about the game, talking about where I was in the game, talking about pimping? Why? With my strategic mind, they should have known that it was a reason. Well, what I realized is one of the greatest demonic forces against our people have been music. Mm-hmm. It has encapsulated and captured our people and young minds. And what they promote is lasciviousness and the life of hedonism and all these kind of things, right? Being a down Negro, being hard, being this, being real. Well, what you think the Most High brought me out of that lifestyle for? Because I'm all the things that they want to salute. So it's my job strategically to go in and get my people. I got to go in there and get us. I can't just allow what's going on to continue to happen and me not have a strategic plan to go in there after my people. So that's what I do. I'm going to show you what I live. I'm going to talk about my mindset and what I lived it, but I got somewhere to lead you. I'm not talking like one of these guys out here that's leading you to do syrup and drink and a loose lifestyle and all that. I've been married 24 years. I've achieved police accountability where the president himself, Trump, called me and all this stuff. So, but in order to get their attention, I got to communicate on their language. That's my strategy. Let me communicate to them that I'm a real cat from these streets, a pimp for real, was the biggest guy in the game for real in the time that I was doing it, right? And I'm going to tell you how I did it passionately. And if I can get your attention, because I will, I'm going to lead you somewhere. Right now, ain't nobody leading you nowhere. So that's my strategy, bro. And I'm not really worried about giving it. That's my strategy of why I start doing music. Because our people that are lost are there. And I got to go in there and go after them, right? And I got to be real about it. I can't go in there without being real. My father told me, whenever you write a book or you got to be real. Whenever you talk about you got to be honest with the people. So I got to be honest with the people. And in the hopes that honesty will ultimately catch their attention and Dre could lead them somewhere where we need to be going. Because ain't nobody leading them nowhere, man. That's why. So the music is doing great. I love it. I've been doing it about a year now, but I was doing music before. My uncle Harold Clayton wrote Baby You Can Do It by the SOS Band. And I remember being there when he wrote it. He wrote that. So I was always around music, So yeah, I'm just coming full circle, man. And start doing this music and pushing out this real game, real life stuff. And it's doing well. It's doing well.
Cool.
I think on World Star, one of my videos got over 6 million views. Another one got 4 million. So, they're doing pretty good, man. Yeah, all independent. Yeah, all independent, man. But that's my strategy, bro. I don't want you to ever get confused of why. I want you to know why.
Indeed. We definitely appreciate you. Honest, gorgeous Dre. Andrè, gorgeous Dre Taylor on the Hip Hop Uncensored podcast. Let the people know where they can find you, your social media handles, YouTube. Before we get up out of here, brother, we appreciate you.
Andrè Gorgeous Dre Taylor on YouTube. My Instagram page is at Real Gorgeous Dre. You guys come holler at me, man. Like I said, I give my daily fires, which are my lectures. I do them on my OnlyFans. Yeah, man, got an OnlyFans, but I'm giving knowledge. I ain't selling nothing else. We talking about knowledge, and my people got to start valuing it, right? And same thing on my IG, Instagram. We giving knowledge over there, bro. So you want some of that, come get it. Love you.
Peace, man. Appreciate your time, man. Thank you for the wisdom.
All love. One.
Take care.
All right.